Hey everyone, thanks for joining us again for another episode. We are continuing our discussion with the story of Naomi and Ruth. And this week's episode, episode 6, is Share Your Story. So without further ado, let's begin. Episode 6, Share Your Story. Now, last week, we talked about Ruth 1 and we were introduced to Naomi and her situation. We know that Naomi was left as a widow, her husband died, and both of her sons were deceased. In addition, we were introduced to Orpah and Ruth, the wives of both of her sons. So at this time, all there was left was Naomi, her daughters-in-law, Orpah, and Ruth. So they were returning back to Moab, and there was a decision that needed to be made. Naomi said to both of her girls, Ruth and Orpah, hey, go back with your mothers and go back to your family and be sustained there. However, Ruth's loyalty really, I believe, was noticeable because she said to Naomi, no, I'm going to stay with you. I'm not going to leave you. Your God will be my God, and where you live, I will live, and where you die, I will die. Ruth decided to stay with Naomi. And so that really showed her loyalty amidst all the grieving that was going on, because you have to think about it here. Ruth lost her husband. Naomi lost her husband. Orpah lost her husband. And here they are, three women who are without sustenance, without protection, without a husband to take care of them and to provide the income that's needed. So this was a pretty heavy time where all three were pretty much grieving. And so it took an incredible amount of strength and loyalty for Ruth to say, Naomi, I'm with you. I got your back. I'm not going to leave you. We're in this together. So for this week, we are going to read Ruth 2, verses 1 through 23, and our story continues as Ruth meets Boaz. So turn with me to Ruth 2, and let's begin reading. Now Naomi had a relative of her husband's, a worthy man of the clan of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, let me go to the field and glean among the ears of grain after him whose sight I shall find favor. And she said to her, go, my daughter. So she set out and went and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And she happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the clan of Elimelech. And behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem, and he said to the reapers, the Lord be with you. And they answered, the Lord bless you. Then Boaz said to his young man who was in charge of the reapers, whose young woman is this? And the servant who was in charge of the reapers answered, she is the young Moabite woman who came back with Naomi from the country of Moab. She said, please let me glean, gather among the sheaves after the reapers. So she came, and she has continued from early morning until now, except for a short rest. Then Boaz said to Ruth, now listen, my daughter, do not go to glean in another field or leave this one, but keep close to my young women. Let your eyes be on the field that they are reaping, and go after them. Have I not charged the young men not to touch you? And when you are thirsty, go to the vessels and drink what the young men have drawn. Then she fell on her face, bowing to the ground, and said to him, why have I found favor in your eyes, that you should take notice of me, since I am a foreigner? But Boaz answered her, all that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband has been fully told to me, and how you left your father and mother and your native land and came to a people that you did not know before. The Lord repay you for what you have done, and a full reward be given you by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. Then she said, I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord, for you have comforted me and spoken kindly to your servant, though I am not one of your servants. And at mealtime, Boaz said to her, come here and eat some bread and dip your morsel in the wine. So she sat beside the reapers, and he passed to her roasted grain. And she ate until she was satisfied, and she had some left over. When she rose to glean, Boaz instructed his young men, saying, let her glean even among the sheaves, and do not reproach her. And also pull out some from the bundles for her, and leave it for her to glean, and do not rebuke her. So she gleaned in the field until evening. Then she beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. And she took it up and went into the city. Her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned. She also brought out and gave her what food she had left over after being satisfied. And her mother-in-law said to her, "Where did you glean today? And where have you worked? Blessed be the man who took notice of you." So she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked and said, "The man's name with whom I work today is Boaz." And Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, "May he be blessed by the Lord, whose kindness has not forsaken the living or the dead." Naomi also said to her, "The man is a close relative of ours, one of our redeemers." And Ruth the Moabite said, "Besides, he said to me, 'You shall keep close by my young men until they have finished all my harvest.'" And Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, "It is good, my daughter, that you go out with this young woman, lest in another field you be assaulted." So she kept close to the young woman of Boaz, gleaning until the end of the barley and wheat harvests, and she lived with her mother-in-law. So that was the reading of Ruth 2, verses 1 through 23, where Ruth comes in contact with Boaz. Now, I want us to pay special attention to Ruth 2, verses 11. And this is when Ruth is having a conversation with Boaz, and she's wondering, "Why do you have such favor upon me?" And here's his response. "All that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband has been fully told to me, and how you left your father and mother and your native land and came to a people that you did not know before." Wow. So what this really indicates is that there was some dialogue happening behind the scenes. Little did Ruth know, but there was conversation that took place between Naomi and Boaz. Something had to transpire through conversation for him to know of Ruth and to make a statement of such nature. So I want us to talk today about your story. Share your story. Shatter the silence that has kept you hostage. Every single one of us has a story, and our story may not be like Ruth's, but we have a story. And as you can clearly see in the conversation or the narrative for today, Ruth's story preceded her. Ruth's story was heard of by Boaz, and he, in that story, enabled her to have favor. So the conversation that took place where there was a knowledge of Ruth and her dealings and her situations got to Boaz, and he extended favor to her. Not only just favor, but he extended favor to Naomi as well, because she got to benefit from all that was gleaned in the fields. So let's talk for a minute. What is a story? A story. We've heard this term many times before, but what is a story? People say, "Oh, share your story. What's your story?" Or, "Oh, girl, let me tell you this story." What is a story? A story is simply an account or a narrative of something. Generally speaking, when you're kids and you're growing up, we read kids' stories. We like to listen to stories, and believe it or not, stories are all over the place. When you look at television shows, you see a narrative of some sort. You see a storyline or a plot. A story is simply a narrative of what took place. Now, in the lives of us, day to day, we tend to think of a story as our life. What has happened? When you look through the Bible, you see plenty of stories. And even though Ruth's story is very much explicitly told in a narrative, we see other areas of stories throughout the Bible as well. We see the story of Jesus. We see the story of Mary and Joseph. We see the story of Paul and all that he's gone through. But in this particular situation, we see the benefit of the story that was told about Ruth in relation to Boaz. So it's important to note that everyone has a story. But why is it important? Why is your story important? What's the reason for us even chatting about this today? So your story is not only beneficial to you, but it can be beneficial to others as well. So you have a story. You ever heard of the term history repeats itself? There's nothing new under the sun. Well, when we share stories, when we share experiences, it can be a blessing to other people for certain things not to repeat and for things that we should repeat. And just kind of knowing your history and knowing what preceded you or what took place prior to your becoming is helpful, because you will learn not to make either those same mistakes or to repeat some of the things that have lasting, powerful, positive effects. So a story is not only can not only necessarily be a great thing, but it could also be a bad thing if what's in the story is not helpful for you. So it could be like a learning experience. So then I guess in that sense, we could pretty much say it's a good thing. It's always a positive thing if you're learning. I'll say it that way. So let's talk about some of the positive effects of your story. Now, in Ruth and Naomi's situation, the positive effects is that once Ruth got finished picking and gleaning from the fields, because of the story that was told about her, there was favor. And so once she was finished gleaning in the fields, there was so much left over that Naomi had a chance to eat. So she was always satisfied. And I can't get into Ruth 3 just yet, but there were additional positive effects of her story being told. Because of that story, it highlighted Ruth to Boaz. He was able to see her, not as just a foreigner, but this is a woman who is loyal. This is a woman who stuck out with her mother-in-law despite the tragedy that took place. So it really started to share about it allowed him to see her character in a way that he may not have noticed her before. So how does this relate to mother and daughter relationships? How does your story help? So as I stated before, stories can transcend just the current generation, and it can affect other generations and other people, as in the situation with Ruth and Naomi. But between mother and daughter relationships, when a mother shares her story with her daughter, when she tells her what she may have gone through, this could be helpful for the daughter because she can not only learn, but the daughter may be able to relate and say, you know what, Mom? I understand what you mean. Now I see why this has affected you this way. And it can also be excellent as a learning tool. Additionally, when stories are told, it could really bring mothers and daughters closer together because they can realize that they have more things in common than they may think. So stories are very, very powerful. And we'd love for you to join us as we talk about this more in depth in our Thursday book club. So join in, and this is how you can connect with us. We stream for our book club every Thursday on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. Also join in our community group, www.titleyourtruth.com, where we take a lot of the conversation that we have on Thursdays and we expand upon it and we go more in depth and we start to build relationship as we discuss those topics and talk about different challenges and different things that we're focused on for that week. And we really start to get personal and we build relationship with other mothers and daughters as well. And feel free to always check out our podcast on our website, www.truth-talks-podcast.com. Check us out on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Title Your Truth. We thank you so much for joining us and we look forward to seeing you in the next show. Talk to you soon.